Hi, I'm Aiman, and welcome back to one of my product assembly videos. In last video, I unboxed this YITAHOME bird cage, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to assemble it. So if you're interested in buying it, go check out a link I'll put in the description down below. We're going to get right into it. So all the parts are labeled with stickers on it. So this one's like part G. First parts that we're going to need are part A, part B, and part C. I have a drill with me, but it's usually easier to work with power tools, but if you don't have one, you can just use the tools that come with them. So we're going to take some of these bolts that they give to us. I think we're going to need 8 for this first step, as well as some of these nuts. Let's see, yeah, we'll need 8. And you can see from the instructions just how they go together. Some key things to note is that for the side legs, which are part A, the holes face inwards so that they can interface with C. And for part B, these little thin sheets, or these thin rods, their holes face upwards. And all the screws go in on the side of A. So the easiest way to do this is probably to do one screw at a time. And you can see that they're threaded, so they should be easy to just line up the screw or a bolt, and then turn it a bit, probably hand tighten it, and then you're good to go. Now, as you're doing this, make sure that the holes, again, are facing inwards, not outwards. We'll also continue on the other side of the feet. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I'll start using the drill to make things a bit faster, or the driver, whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right. And now once we have these two on, we can insert part C on the side. Let me just tighten this a tiny bit more to make it not loose. Okay. And so what you can do is you can stand up part A and stand up part C. It's a bit bent, but that should be okay. Line it up like so. At this point, these two prongs on C should go into the holes of A. And it looks like part C is symmetrical, so there's no worry about if you're putting it on the wrong side, but it's up to you how you might want to install it. Or orientation, I mean. And if you don't like the orientation later, you can always just change it. Shouldn't be too hard. Alright, so now you want to flip this over. Get your other A part, line it up on that prong. Alright, and this is a part where it's really important that you don't tighten all of the screws on the first A piece, because that will make it easier to line up these other pieces that are screwing them in. Should give you a bit of leeway to move these parts. Okay. there we go. Again, don't tighten it all the way. Just tighten it enough that it's snug for now. Okay, so at this point, the instructions say that you can put the casters on. I'm sure they could go on at any point, but I guess we'll just do them now because that's how the instructions say to do it. And they just push into place. Probably better to do this on the floor so I have something to push against. All right, there we go. And they just click into place. Good to use your body weight to help push them in because they are friction fit. Okay, there we go. So this next step is we're going to take part D, which has the door, and these parts, which are part F, and we're going to assemble them so that part F goes into the base of part D. So notice that on the front, facing the inside of the cage are these two blades, and facing the outside is this sort of recessed area. So you want to make sure that these large blades are facing the bottom. And this thinner blade, or this less wide or narrower blade, is facing the top. Okay. So grab a bolt. It lines up with this hole. And again, make sure that the larger blade is facing the inside and it's on the bottom. Okay, and so once you have it lined up, now you want to take a nut, and put it on the front of that. Put it on the end of the bolt. And screw it in. Okay, and we'll finish it up later, but that should be enough for now. I'm going to continue on to the other one, and then later I'll come back and tighten them. Okay, again, make sure that the larger blade's on the bottom. Push in your screw, line it up through the hole. Screw it in. Okay, and to help me out, I'm gonna just use this for a bit. Okay, so if you're using the hex key to prevent the bolt from spinning, you're gonna want to use the wrench that comes included to screw it in. Because if you just use the hex key, then it's just going to spin freely. And the wrench rotates it from rotating as you tighten it. You're going to want to do the same thing on here. The drill tends to be a bit faster, so usually you probably won't even need to use the wrench to lock it, because it's just fast enough to avoid the rotation, at least in my experience. Okay, so next step is part G. We have two part G mesh grids, whatever you want to call them, and they have these gates that slide up and down on them. And you can see based on the drawing that these gates should be in the upper half of the cage, which makes sense because if they're on the bottom, then gravity would push them open. So you want gravity to keep them closed. And what we're going to do is there are 2 points on them that you want to install into these 2 holes. Again, make sure that the gates are facing the outside. And as you insert it, there's these 3 prongs here that will also go into the original part D. So if you're having a bit of trouble with the step, you can unscrew any of the parts to give you a bit more leeway. And I could definitely bend it into the place right now if I wanted to, but just for demonstration purposes, I think I will do that, just to show you guys what I mean. So you can loosen the bolt down here. Where did I put it? So you can loosen the bolt here to make this spin freely. Take your part G, line it up, and then it's already like all the way out. And so you can push it into part D and then tighten. And then again, make sure that it's standing up as you do that. So if you're having trouble getting part G in, you can do that. But as shown, you can just snap it in if you're strong enough. Shouldn't take a lot of strength, but I just want to give you multiple options to assemble it. All right, the next step is going to be installing part E, which is the back side. And this is pretty intuitive. Just make sure that part E has these holes that should face the inside, whereas on the outside there are no holes. Also note that part E has holes at the top but not at the bottom. And so this is going to be fixed in the same way that part D was, using the bolts and the nuts, but it's going to go into the back. And make sure that these 3 prongs on both sides line up as you're putting it on. These can help you align it. Okay. Once they're aligned, you can insert it. I'm going to put the nut later, just so I can have this out of the way. You might have to jiggle it a little bit if you're experiencing a bit of a problem getting everything aligned. Okay. Same thing on that side. And we can come back later and tighten it after everything's done. Next step is we're going to take part H. Oh, finally I have a table space. We're going to take part H, which is the top side, and we're going to install it onto the top. Make sure that you have these holes here that should be facing the bottom, which they interface with these prongs on the top of the side walls. So if you're having a bit of trouble with this, you can unscrew each side, but there's nothing that's fixing these in place, so you should be able to have a bit of wiggle room to sort of pull this out and then push it back in. But first off, let's make sure that they're aligned with all the prongs. Okay, and once they're aligned, you want to take 4 bolts and screw it in. There we go. Next step is we're going to take the bottom sort of cart assembly with the wheels, and we're going to affix it to the top cage assembly. So with this assembly, we're going to be using bolts and nuts together. That should go with these 4 holes that line up with these 4 holes and the 2 in the back of the cage. And so based on a diagram, you can see that the bolts are supposed to go from the top. Although they'll generally, I mean, top or bottom, I think in my opinion, doesn't really matter in this case. But based on the instructions, the bolts go from the top. Okay? And I'm going to actually flip it over. It can be a bit of a pain to try to fix something when it's on a rolling surface or using wheels. Okay. So if the bolts are from the top, usually, that means right now, bolts are from the bottom. If I remember correctly, these are also, this also comes with two non-locking casters and 2 locking casters, so I might go back and double check on that. And conveniently speaking, it's more convenient for the screws to be facing the bottom, in this case facing the top, just so that I could get my drill there. And since nuts and bolts tighten using compression, it shouldn't matter if they're from the top or from the bottom. But since I recognize everyone's going to be assembling using these same instructions, I want to provide the same experience as them. So you can see I'm having a bit of trouble getting the screw in. Maybe, let's see if I try from the top. Okay. So if you have a bit of trouble with getting in or lining it up, you can unscrew the rest of the screws. Try to give yourself a bit more leeway. I'm going to come back later and do that. Let's see. I think I can get this. Alright. So next step is securing everything, because the rest of the things that go on, they don't actually fasten to the cage. So you're going to want to go back and tighten all the bolts that we used to assemble the cage. And while we're here, you can also adjust the casters, make sure that they're in the right places. Depending on where you would lock the bird cage from. I assume most people are probably going to lock it from the front. So that's where I'm going to put it. Okay. Oh, look, the thing comes out with it. Okay, so make sure that that plastic thing is in there, that little holder for the casters. Okay. All right, so like I said, now I'm going to go back and tighten everything. So I would use my power drill for making sure everything is screwed in all the way, and then I would use by manually taking the wrench and the Allen key and making sure that everything is tightened to snug fit, and then like a half turn. So I'll just demonstrate, for example. This one's already somewhat tightened. So if I want to tighten it to a snug fit, oh, and this is where I think it would have been better to put the bolt facing the bottom, but the instructions don't say that. Okay, so now they're at a snug fit. If I try to lightly twist it, then it's not going to twist. So now, when it's at a snug fit, I'll just add maybe a quarter turn. Or an eighth of a turn if you can't get a quarter turn. All right, so do that for all the bolts, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so now let's finish up everything. Let's take our perches and insert them. So you want to put them inside. Make sure that the slots are facing upwards, and then put them in diagonally. Then line them up on the other side. I like using these bars are just a tiny bit thicker than the rest of them, so that's the ones I'm going to use. And you can put the perches wherever you want. For now, I'm just going to put them wherever the instructions say, which is at the top two thick bars. Nice. You can take off the stickers too, whenever. Let's lock the door for now. The two food bowls will go in through here. I think you also have the option of putting them here if you want. But this is probably easier for feeding it from the front. Okay. All right, so let me put the tray in. The tray is where all the droppings collect. So make sure that the pole lip, this little lip here, is facing the outside. And it just slides in into the bottom. Yeah, it looks like it's into the bottom. And then this grate here slides just into the top and rests on top of the tinier lip. All right, nice. And then after you insert it, it shouldn't be able to come out because of this little tab here. Okay, so that's the assembly of this this bird cage. Well, the one that we bought was well, you can buy on Amazon. Link it in the description below. But I'm pretty sure this applies to most bird cages that come in this sort of form factor. So I hope this video helped you out. If it did, let me know in the comments down below. Pretty simple operation, and I hope the parakeets are gonna like this. I'm gonna do a review on this bird cage, so go check out that next video, and I'll see you in that video. But for now, I'm Aiman. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and look at videos on Aiman, especially the assembly videos, and I'll see you in the next one. For now, I'm Aiman, and signing out. Peace.